welcome JJ Goodman. Loving your name.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Lovely to have you here, and thank you for driving down all the way from Norwich.
Yeah, it was a painful one.
Yeah, that is like my longest travelling guest, I think, so far. So I'm like, thank you. And so for those listeners who don't know you, you've got quite a long portfolio and you work on loads of different stuff. But where did it all begin and where are you now?
Yeah, I'm JJ Goodman, bartender by trade, by heart, I suppose. Launched my first bar, London Cocktail Club, when I was 24, having had quite a career in mixology and mixed drinks, doing lots of cocktail competitions, won a few big ones, got a chance to open my first bar. Shortly after that, I worked with the TV show with the BBC with Raymond Blanc for the restaurant. We won that. My business partner and I, we already had London Cocktail Club, but we then rolled that out. Opened 12 bars, lockdown hit. My business partner, Sarah William, Dragon's Den, turned around to me and was like, I want to float London Cocktail Club in the stock market. We want to start a fund, Nightcap, and then spent the last 4 years buying distressed businesses post-COVID. And we've now got 46 sites in that group, 65 million turnover, 1,200 staff, and then my new side project, Incubator Bar Group, we're financing bartenders into businesses. So giving people the opportunity who are talented in their industry, improve themselves, the opportunity to become their own boss. And then, and in between that, I juggle bits and pieces.
Do you still make the odd cocktail?
Yeah, I did last night, actually. I was in Norwich making espresso martinis and daiquiris. So, apparently I've still got it. Boulevardiers and Negronis, and I had a really good time last night. It was good fun. So I miss it, but I don't get to do it as much as I'd like to.
Yeah. And I mean, that's like every entrepreneur's incredible success story, that you start doing something that you love and that you're good at, and now you've built this, through partnerships and through everything you've been doing, you've built this massive empire. Like, what was that journey like in terms of your own sense of skill set, and how did it happen?
Yeah, I mean, inevitably, like, my primary skill set is mixing drinks and throwing parties. So to be in a position where you're running businesses, like, it's a bit of a hefty jump. You learn as you go. Just try and have the confidence just to push on and just do it. Sounds a bit lame, but you just do need to keep pushing and just convince yourself that it'll work itself out later. I think a lot of people don't open their first business because it's quite daunting. The financial side of the business, the marketing side of the business, the risk, raising capital, health and safety, fire, risk, licensing. There's so many moving parts to business that you wouldn't, procurement. I mean, the list goes on. And you can easily worry that that's too much that you don't know, and that stops you from actually, making the scary jump and leap of doing something. But I think when you really focus down into what the core fundamentals of a business are, is it's sales, and there's probably like 3 direct costs. It's staff, it's stock, and it's property. And that, and those are the things that you can, manage. And what's a reasonable capex fit out? I just opened a bar recently for 100 grand, so it's still possible to be able to do, affordable sites and openings. But it's scary. It's scary. And again, that's the beautiful thing about Incubator, is I've got all those systems in place and I've got all those relationships over the last 25 years. So actually helping people get into that comfort place of, you just go down the top end of the pitch and you score goals and don't worry about the rest. I've got it. And over time, that all those systems just get embedded and the confidence builds, and then you're ready to go again and do site 2, and
And that's what your incubator is focusing on.
That's what that's focused on. Yeah. That's kind of it's fun. Don't get me wrong. We're all making money, but it's fun to be working with people who've got that energy that I had when I first started. And they can pour 100% of themselves into one project. Spinning lots of plates, as you know, you have to distribute your energy. And sometimes you just don't feel like you're really progressing or moving forward. There's just constant plate spinning. And you just don't get that sense of reward. Like when you first start out as a bartender, there's that instant gratification of making something beautiful for somebody, handing it to them instantly, them taking a sip of it, and just the way that their face lights up, ideally, if you haven't messed it up. And just, it's that like transfer of pleasure, and then you get the pleasure of seeing pleasure in someone else. Running businesses isn't like that.
No.
Yeah. And it's relatively thankless.
100%, yeah.
But becoming an entrepreneur obviously does, you're never off work, but you do have that freedom to dictate where you are and what you do and when you do it to a degree. And that freedom is something that, is I've personally found really liberating and worth the stress of having to run a business at the same time to get there.
So where's your role focused predominantly now then, or what does your day-to-day look like?
I don't have a day-to-day. My diary, if you went back through my diary, it would scare you. I bounce all over the country, inevitably with the bars. Nightcap's head office is still in Soho. Our development studio's over in Shoreditch for our drinks development and innovation. But up and down for sites. This week I was in Manchester. We've just done a new deal with a wholesaler. They had an events day for a lot of their brands that they're distributing to go and do some meet and greets. Yesterday I was in Norwich. We had one of our investors, Roger Hickman's a famous chef from East Anglia. He had a wine pairing dinner. Today, I'm happy to be here with you. I'm looking forward to, I've got dinner with my friend who's an incredible food photographer tonight. It's her birthday. I'm excited for that. I'm not sure where I'm at tomorrow or next week. So it's lovely. I actually have got used to living out of a bag, really. Sometimes I resent it when you have to be on the move all the time. It can be quite a lot. But there is something about putting, zipping up the bag and you're about to go away for a bit of a mental week and you don't know where you're going to end up. It's good fun. Yeah, I just got back from New Orleans for a big cocktail awards. I'm in Hong Kong in 2 weeks for another big, cocktail awards. 50 best, which I'm looking forward to as well. So yeah, I never imagined I'd get the chance to do so much travel in my career when I started out wanting to be a bartender. It's been a really nice bonus.
And when you did start out, where did you think you were going to go?
I thought, one day if I work really, really hard, I might own my own bar one day. I think, I never really got past one site in my head. But at least I had that goal, I had that vision to do that, and I had a book of bar concepts, which was quite good fun. There was stupid stuff in there about the picnic club, which we ended up doing for the BBC show, was literally trying to design an outdoor experience indoor where summer was 365 days a year, which was absolutely stupid. There's some giant teddy bears involved in that bit. I think I must have been drinking when I wrote that one. There was at one point, I think we desperately wanted to put a moat in the front of a bar. We thought that would be really, really cool. Just generally bouncing ideas and stuff with friends. But the reality when you actually have to open your first bar is it will become a lot more commercial. It's what you can afford to open unless you're choosing to do some fairly large dilution. And the reality of trying to open a cocktail bar at 24 years old is you've not got access to much finance. And you've got to rely on great service and great atmosphere and great product. That's all you've got. So all you've got is those three. And the rest of it's a bit of a box. We were just talking, obviously, before we started the podcast, that getting those three fundamentals right is more than enough, actually, for a successful business. And those are the things, essentially, I'm employed to protect within Nightcap. And, that's the relationship I have with my founders at Incubator.
So we've obviously seen a lot of change in the industry. You've been in it 20... Yeah,
25, 26 years, yeah.
26 years, that's epic. 3 decades. And I know like there's a lot of talk with COVID and Brexit and, you know, cost of living. What do you see over your last 26 years that has actually been the biggest change?
Yeah, I mean, I almost don't like talking about COVID. It was a really dark part of my life. I you know, for something to happen that could just completely take away. At the time, we didn't know when we were in the middle of it. We didn't know what devastation it was going to leave or what we were going to be left with. We just knew that we were paying bills and paying rent and paying national insurance and paying for a business that we weren't allowed to trade and operate. And then when we were allowed to trade and operate, we were allowed like 15 people in the bar, you know, with social distancing, and, you know, suddenly we had to add food for no fucking reason, and we weren't allowed to sing, we weren't allowed to dance, we weren't allowed to play music above, you know, speaking level, officially. And it was hard. And then, of course, you know, we saw a lot of people didn't come back to work after COVID. I think a lot of people went back to Europe or back home, or found other jobs that they were actually quite enjoying being out of nightlife, and the culture of nightlife died. There's a whole generation coming through, that just about through now, that, you know, had to rediscover, you know, nightlife in their 20s, you know, in their mid-20s, because it was taken from them in their late teens, which is a real shame. But we're obviously seeing Gen Z come back to the bars again, and discover what the value of a great night out is, and what that looks like. And, you know, booze has been here for a very, very long time, and it's been a real hiccup. But the staffing situation was horrendous. You know, 21, we had that big backlash of people who were desperate to get back out. We didn't have enough people to be able to service them. And those who stuck around and got stuck in, you know, were absolute heroes. Yeah, I mean, literally doing the job of 3 people. It was insane. And then, yeah, I think that's probably somehow kicked on the non-alcohol movement, which I think is probably thinning out a little bit again. I think, yeah, we're getting back to just old school, you know, classic high energy bars, a bit like some of the openings we were talking about a minute ago. Yeah, high energy, slinging great drinks, shoulder to shoulder, at the bar top, bartenders thrashing out massive mats of beautiful booze, lights swinging, ice smashing off ceilings. Yeah.
So do you think it was all a moment in time? Because there's been a lot of press, hasn't there, around Gen Z's not going out, them not spending as much with alcohol, the alcohol-free movement. How real was that in your business impact?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it's actually been really positive in a lot of ways as well. You know, I think the evolution of the mocktail into the no and low movement has required the industry to really raise their standards on how they present non-alc. And that's required a lot of creativity. That's required a lot of innovation, you know, in the space. I like zebra drinking, you know, the idea of kind of one alc, one non-alc, and flipping between, you know, quality non-alc options, I think is a really, really great thing. So the cost of living crisis is certainly, I think, personally, the biggest issue. You know, we're charging £12 to £15 for a quality cocktail now, and it's very hard to justify moving that. The classic metrics mean that we're spending more on labour than we ever have, and the cuts that we're having to make to be able to make that work has been sad, really. So you've got to find an audience who are willing to go out and spend £12, £15 on a cocktail. Do they then choose to drink less frequently to spend a similar amount? Probably, yeah. Midweek's been really hard, but Saturdays are flying.
Yeah,
absolutely booming. But yeah, the midweek's been it's been tricky to, keep pushing on.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of changed even like the recession, the previous recession, that we used to have such a city culture of I don't know if you found that, but for our business, we found that then was like, I mean, it was like every single day of the week. And that kind of started to taper off a few years after that.
The city is, I was just on a call with the property agent a minute ago on the way here. The city's fine. Like, you know, Bank, Monument, Liverpool Street, Canary Wharf.
All week.
We are not struggling to sell drinks in those locations. Canary Wharf, I mean, and actually on a Saturday and a Sunday as well. I mean, traditionally that part of town was dead on the weekends, and that's just not the case. You know, it's so well serviced as an area for midweek. You know, it's an absolute brilliant night out now on a weekend, as it has been for a while. But to think that Canary Wharf is packed on a Saturday and a Sunday is, yeah, I mean, 10 years ago, that would just be the wildest assumption. But the quality is amazing.
And so behind the scenes, you've got 1,200 staff, you said, with Nightcap?
Yeah, across all the businesses, yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Big staffing pool.
Yeah. If Kim's listening to this, well done, babe. Keep it going. Yeah, she holds the fort for our people team.
And so have you seen a change in the quality or the type of people coming through in our industry?
I think if you don't have a quality training education system, regardless of the staffing situation today or a decade ago, I just don't think you're going to be able to keep up. You're certainly not going to be able to expand. All the founders that I'm working with Incubator all have strong histories in training education. The training plan I wrote for London Cocktail Club, you know, is a 5-stage progression succession program. Most bars give you a menu and hopefully you learn it, and ideally they test you on it. There might be some principles of the business that they want you to try and embody, but you know, probably the culture of the business is going to take care of that more than a piece of A4 paper. But if you're not committed to training education, I think you're screwed. Yes, I agree that there's been a massive, the pool of talent that we once had from Europe isn't there. The pool of talent post-COVID, because of a lack of late night culture in, you know, guys who would have been in their late teens, early 20s, they're obviously not finding the industry because they've got no connection to it emotionally. But yeah, training's everything, and being able to encourage people to go all the way from their classic kind of induction all the way through to educating people on opening their own and owning their own businesses. You know, we really champion like bar back to bar owner as a concept for training. We've worked with the Prince's Trust, we've worked with Springboard UK, so they're essentially outreach programs for employment that traditionally have a lot of success in vocational skills, such as hospitality, but that tends to be kitchens, that tends to be hotels, rooms. And both of those different charities approached me separately to talk about how we could find a safe way to expose, you know, their pool of young people to bartending. Obviously, the natural concerns around relationship with alcohol, and you know, essentially they've got candidates who've come from slightly unstructured backgrounds, you know, but we put forward obviously the case for skills, quality, and I've had a lot of success with it. But again, that's because of our pure dedication to training. You know, we've got area trainers, in-store trainers, you know, a very clear induction program, you know, quite a lot of digital e-learning, though I still prefer, you know, personal one-to-one. Encouraging the teams to engage with their staff behind the bar in quiet times, new starters working on busier stations on quieter shifts to get them prepped up and ready to take on those like hardcore point bar stations on Fridays and Saturdays and stuff. So, yeah, if you're not in love with training education, or you do not have someone in your business that's obsessed with training education and succession and career development, regardless of who's available, you should have that completely inbuilt into everything that you do, I think.
I suppose that's how you've been able to scale, because you've got this quality across board.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to work for the Be At One group back in the day when they were at 3 sites. They grew to 5 sites when I was with them, and obviously they exited for 60 million at 34 sites, whatever it was. I got to work for Tim Bacon at Living Ventures, whose commitment to training education was like second to none. So you look at the commonality on brilliant businesses, scaled businesses. What's available to them, and the passion and the infrastructure, the brew dogs of the world. I've got to hang out with a couple of their people teams in and around conferences, and they're obsessed. They're absolutely obsessed with the idea of whether it be brew dog, like understanding and falling completely in love with the category of beer, in the same way London Cocktail Club was completely obsessed with everything from speed bartending to classic cocktail history, mixology 101, spirits production. It's the quantity of knowledge is overwhelming, but breaking it down into accessible steps for people, and then like helping them along their ways is really rewarding. I get a lot out of seeing other people's success.
And so what's something that you've seen in the industry as of late where you're like, this just ain't gonna work?
Yeah, there's a few bits and pieces, inevitably. I need to check myself sometimes that I'm just not being a bit too fucking old school, and that I'm not just being a bit too old school. We live in a big world of pre-batching at the moment, so pre-making cocktails, which inevitably separates the bartender from the liquid a little bit. They don't understand what they're making. It removes a layer of skill that I don't think is particularly healthy. I think it's really important that we give, our classic cocktail compendium, I believe, goes up to 350 classic drinks that we train in. Our basic induction's 50, wow. So it's not so hardcore. But if someone walks into your bar and orders a drink, and you don't have the knowledge or the skill set to be able to produce that for them because everything's done, all the work's done for you by the prep leader, I think that's a shame. I do see a world for pre-batch where there's a lot of fabulous science and technology at the moment that goes into be able to create unique and incredible flavour through whatever rotovaps or freeze distillation techniques that are being used. I think people are desperately trying to separate themselves as businesses from their peers, and they're doing that through flavour. I think if you're doing that and you're doing that well, brilliant. But yeah, if you're pre-batching mojito just for the sake of it, I'm worried that you're de-skilling the industry, and in a lot of it can be lazy. I find it lazy if it's not been used for the right reasons. So yeah, that one can probably go in the bin. We were obviously talking about this kind of massive influx in live music. Live music only pre-pandemic was just actually we trialed it in a lot of businesses to try and boost sales, and we were actually finding that we were losing sales. And now it's in everywhere, and inevitably, these great musicians need to be paid properly, and it's a massive expense to the business. And we're competing against big bars with big budgets, big turnovers, that are able to put on live entertainment 7 nights a week, and that's almost impossible to keep up with, in kind of the traditional kind of cocktail bar model. So I'm more jealous of that one than against it. But yeah, inevitably there's always fads going on in the industry that's that I think are fun for innovation. I don't necessarily have to understand it or love it, but I do love the process of innovation and creativity. And whoever's out there trying something new, I try my best not to jump to judgment.
What's the most innovative thing that you've tried in one of your sites that failed?
It's a hard one. London Cocktail Club, we like to design every single business independently. It was kind of my wish to not replicate the same site every single time with the same paint Pantones and the same, light fittings. So, but we never thought we were going to open 18 of them. So to come up with like a different design every single time, sometimes I wonder if we've overcomplicated it for no reason. And our Clapham bar was probably just that. Secret Cinema was absolutely booming. There was this real kind of call and requirement for, like heavily themed spaces. So we designed a bar that was movie themed, where we recreated scenes from famous movies. So you can drink on the Titanic, and you can drink on the Death Star, and you can drink, in the cafe scene for Pulp Fiction. And it was really, really fun. But because the site hasn't been a runaway success, you kind of sit back and you're like, was that too much? But equally, the same site in a different location could have made loads of money and you'd have been a genius. So it's hard.
So many variables.
Yeah. And if creativity is like a core value of your business, you've got to be willing to make mistakes. And you've got to be willing to go a little bit too far. So I think if you're in a position where you're choosing not to put yourself at risk, I don't think you've got any chance of reaching full potential. I think accepting, to get 1 out of 10 decisions wrong, but sticking true to yourself and pushing, I think is really acceptable, acknowledging it, learning from it and moving forward. But not accepting failure to be allowed into your life, I think will probably affect the speed in which you move, and will affect how much you create. If I charged you with the idea of opening 10 bars but promised you that one of them was going to close, you would do it. Every failure hurts, but I don't think that you should be stopped from pushing. If I told you 6 would work and 4 would close, I think you would still do it. Mm-hmm. Just be above that 51% rule, and in theory, you're fine. So yeah, keep pushing.
So with your aversion to risk, or your relationship to risk, has that evolved over the years?
Yeah, big time. I hit 30, I had 7 bars, was making great money. We could afford a brilliant infrastructure at London Cocktail Club. But I was unhappy and angry, and it was a really good friend of mine, Kira, who was running marketing for us at the time, pulled me over, and she's like, you can't go on like this, you're going to burn out. She put me in touch with a friend of hers, and inevitably I ended up working with a girl called Lauren, who's incredible life coach. And it was my first, I was apprehensive, inevitably, as most people are. It was kind of my first step into kind of coaching therapy. And I told her this, I told her what was going on. And in 2 seconds, she was like, "Oh, fear of failure. Yeah, it's normal." I'm like, what? She studies the mind, she studies the brain, she knows how it works. People do fall into pockets and categories. And there is a mathematical kind of almost solution that you can lay down in front of yourself to deal with these things. But to be essentially wildly more successful than I'd ever planned to be, and to not be happy in that space, it was terrible. I'm discovering you've got a fear of failure. So the way I was communicating was very aggressive. I was trying to maintain probably an unreasonable standard that we hadn't built for the first few sites, but not the one that we could maintain when suddenly we've got to manage and run a big team. My love of training education, I already had it, but it certainly kicked in at that point as well, and drove forward. But fear of failure is a real thing, and she taught me essentially loads of different leadership techniques. But the principle of if you gave the space to your team to make their own decisions, how many decisions would they make wrong? You might argue 2 out of 10. And how many would they make right because you gave them the space and the opportunity to add value rather than, throttling the business. Could they potentially make one? If your answer is yes, let's go, okay, now sit with that, feeling and emotion, and are you happier, or are you still happy with that variation in your business? Can you accept that level of failure, and what does that do for you emotionally? And it was brilliant to let go from being super coiled up rubber bands to just allowing a bit of failure into your world, or your definition of failure, your subjective definition of it. And what that did for you was just, it allowed me to be happy in my workspace, which inevitably meant which was, if you're doing it 100 hours a week, means you're happy in your life. Yeah. So that was a big tilt shift.
Wow. And so how did that impact the team around you? Did people transition with you through that journey for you?
Good, I think. I don't think I ever really sat back and handed out any Q&A cards, but I brilliant business partner in James Hopkins, who's also my best friend. We were living together. I think he'd probably give you better feedback than I would on that. Yeah, so for being that stressed to being that liberated was good fun, and I'm sure everyone was happier when I walked in a room and wasn't expecting an explosion and having to walk on eggshells. It wasn't an immediate step, but
No, but I mean, how important would you say that is for people who are looking to grow businesses, looking to lead on like a big scale, to actually address their own paradigms almost?
Yeah, I sit back on it sometimes. I lost the fear of failure. I also lost some drive, which was probably being fueled by that fear. Some days I miss the fear. It sounds fucking crazy to say. Sometimes I miss that intense drive that I had, and what I created with that energy. It was destructive. It wasn't. I wasn't my favorite person. But what I built using that nuclear fuel, was great. Would I have built what I built today without it? Like, I can't answer some of these things. So I don't want to be too self-deprecating on where I was in that process. But I would certainly encourage anybody building a business to get a leadership coach, because I think it's really essential that you have someone to be able to reach out to and vent to, and discuss issues with. I think when you're so busy in a business, I don't think you're actually aware of where you're at emotionally, because you're constantly firefighting. I saw that brilliant snippet from Elon Musk, who basically just describes directorship as being in charge of all the most disgusting jobs in the company. The jobs that don't get to you unless they've had to be passed by some pretty senior people. I'm not that hands-on with Nightcap, and that's a big beast. But anybody looking to do it, I think, ought to get a resource of some description.
Yeah, and you've had business partners in some of the businesses, and now you're more solo. What have been sort of the downsides and upsides of both?
It's amazing to have business partners. I think as frustrated as you can be in those relationships, and unfortunately they mostly speaking, they don't last forever. Most of them break down at some point. That's kind of inevitable. I feel like the Beatles lasted 8 years. People forget.
Was it only 8 years?
I think it was 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I better double check that, but I quote that one a lot. So this kind of assumption that you're, it's just kind of inevitable. and on the tough days you can really, bump heads. But the good days, like the good days of James and I would always go and sign for all of our new leases together. It was something that we always did. And we always would have a photo like we were signing for a new football team. And we would go straight to the pub and we'd get a Guinness and a shot of Jameson. And it, like they're just really beautiful moments that you get to share. Probably some of the innocence of us obviously growing at the same time. But it was beautiful to share the great days. When you're working solo, you don't have a business partner. Yes, of course, you've got your great equity, but you don't get to do that as much. And having done both, I certainly miss it. Incubator is brilliant. I give the guys and girls that are coming through that we're talking to at the moment for the pipeline of the new sites and the new businesses, they'll essentially get 20% equity of the business once it's broken even and pay back the original investment. And on top of that, there's another 10% EBITDA bonus structure. So essentially they own like a third of the business for no money down. When I set out to go work on that project, I was really excited because I was going to be working like back in independence again. And it has been brilliant, and the independent nature of the businesses and how creatively different they are, and the personality of my business partners in those businesses are everywhere. But I'm kind of in their dream. Like they built it, they're running it, it's their team, it's their menu. I help guide the success of it, and I look forward to meeting them. I look forward to talking about finances for like 5 minutes and then spend 15 minutes talking about new daiquiri recipes, which reminds me very much of when I used to work with Raymond Blanc when he was a big part of London Cocktail Club, getting obsessed with products and interior design, and those are the things that really lit me up. I still have those, but I think I've become the mentor to them. So the only way to get back that feeling is to throw myself into one project. I just don't know if I'm in the time of life that I can do that now.
Grown. Yeah,
Grown, responsibilities, too many moving parts. I think to truly get that feeling back, I think you have to earn it through sweat, blood, tears, and time. Which I don't miss.
Yeah. So what's been your relationship to alcohol and drinking throughout the years of being in the industry?
Yeah, listen, I mean, booze is a big part of the business. In the wrong hands, it can be really destructive. It can certainly, in the right hands, it can be brilliant. Being around alcohol so much, like my job is liquid development with Nightcap, so, we can be in a dev sesh for, 4 hours. We're working on a new LCC menu at the moment. We could be doing 8 hours of development a week. Inevitably, I'm really interested to see what my competitors are doing. My peers. I want to know what they're up to. I want to see what they're doing for innovation. I travel a lot, so I'm constantly interested in what's going on in different like neighborhoods and cities, countries. My Instagram is just full of booze and alcohol. So I do have to take a balanced approach. I do have to commit to getting out of the bars at a certain time. I do have to commit to training. I do have to commit to eating healthily. So I do have to offset the negatives of being surrounded by alcohol all day, every day. But yeah, I think I've been lucky enough. Sometimes this summer was fabulous. I think we all had a good time at work and socially. It felt like a really good summer this year.
Beautiful summer, amazing summer.
Surrounded by friends, surrounded by family.
Wonderful, yeah.
Yeah, the rosé was popping constantly. So it was really good. But then it's just take a little break, you know, and just check in on yourself. Like I think there's nothing more frustrating when you're trying to build something and you're in your own way of success because you're knackered, so you don't do the email, you miss the call, you don't find the time, and I hate. That's the bit I hate. So yeah, I've just got to manage it in. But I've got 2 kids, so like, you know, when I'm with them, you know, there's not really, you know, maybe a glass of red wine. When I'm home, I don't really drink.
How old are your kids?
6 and 4, yeah, Layla and Freddie, they're amazing, yeah. But I just don't really, I don't booze at home. Yeah, I've just got to watch it. If I'm having a really good time, I struggle to leave great people in great bars that are making great drinks. I'm obsessed with the energy of great spaces. And it can be hard to leave. So just managing it, the zebra drinking I mentioned, I think is great. But just looking after myself generally, but this is the path I chose. So,
you know. And it's great to hear that despite how much you manage, how much you're responsible for, how much you oversee, you can still have those present moments in the bars and actually enjoy and be like there.
Yeah, I got behind the bar last night actually, up at Melville and Sons and Leavenworth Social in Norwich. It was really good fun making drinks. Back on that rewards piece of making something beautiful for somebody and them just thanking you and just generally appreciating, you know, the love and energy that you put into it feels really, really good. It was amazing being in New Orleans for the awards this year, the Tales of the Cocktail Awards. I left so inspired by, with so many ideas of what I wanted to build, because I miss being hands-on. So whether or not it's events-based, somehow I need to find an excuse to be like in those high energy moments because I really miss them. They're good for your soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might wake up the following day a little bit spinny, but for all the great chats and the positivity and the engagement and the transfer of energy between people, it's worth it. It's worth it. Yeah.
And I think it's why many people that have stayed in the industry for that long got in it and have kept going in it, because we remember those moments. What would you say about the impact of AI on our industry? Do you see there being AI bartenders in the future?
Yeah, I think the space for AI. I'm worried what it's going to do to our clientele base. I think it'll be hard. I think everyone's been slightly optimistic about it. I'm a little less optimistic about it. I think it's going to ruin jobs. You know, I think most people haven't even really started to understand its full capacity. We've integrated it into our reservations team. We've integrated it into our marketing team. We tried it in drinks development, but AI isn't quite ready to write menus just yet. Not too bad at helping us name drinks, which is one of my least favourite parts of the job. And obviously, you know, the national minimum wage going up again, and utilities going up again, and business rates going up again, our product costs going up again. You know, we've had to make cuts, and inevitably those cuts have come from those departments, and AI has helped us maintain quality service. In some cases, actually develop the service, but at the expense of real jobs, you know, and that's not great. The idea of a world of pre-batch drinks and AI, the human piece of great bars and great bartending and sat at a great bar in front of a great bartender and that dialogue and that exchange and All of our bars, most of our bars pick the music from behind the bar, and we leave that kind of power to the staff, and you can create something really quite magical. The QR codes at the table, I hate. They can go in the bin as well. Removing the human element, so you can remove essentially the amount of staff that you need. I think you're going to lose fans, and you're going to lose love for your business, because inevitably you've lost the connection that makes being in a bar, so beautiful, versus might as well stay at home, I think tech's exciting. I think it'll add a lot of value. But yeah, I just hope we're left with enough customers to keep the lights on, There's going to be a lot of businesses directly affected before hospitality feels it, I think.
You think we'll be one of the last?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I believe that the bar is absolutely on its way back up. I mean, we're looking at our sales 24 versus 25. We're seeing growth for the first time in 5 years. I think the worst times are behind us. I think there are probably still a few businesses hanging on, and they're probably going to have to bite the dust. The Gen Zers that were never going to drink ever again are back in bars. The dating apps that were ruining bars because people could find love online. People are driving back into public spaces to meet people with similar interests, based on the spaces that they enjoy. Yeah, I don't know. Bars have been around forever. I think it's been a tricky 5 years. Brexits, pandemics, and then the repercussions of that on the economy, etc. I just don't see a world where bars don't fly and flourish.
And so, if I was one of your incubator students, do you call them partners?
Partners, yeah, founders, yeah,
great.
Founders.
One of your founders.
You want a bar, do you?
Well, I don't.
Is this a pitch?
But let's pretend I do. What would be 3 core pieces of advice that you'd give me with this new kind of positive wave of resurgence back to the bars?
I think your bar has to reflect you. I think don't mask that. I think it's very easy to make the assumption of what other people want and that your ability to fulfill their needs. I think it should be incredibly selfish, actually, building a bar. I think it should be the best interpretation of yourself and your energy and your personality that it possibly can be. And that would certainly be my first piece of advice. Second would be, your capital expenditure. I think, be realistic about your budgets and what you should be spending. I think we've all got aspirations for the big shiny bar. If it was going to be a goal. But my favourite bar is the one that I built for 50 grand 17 years ago. Because that's the one that I had to paint the walls, and it was the blood, sweat and the tears and every decision was insanely important. When you've got less money to spend on a business, you overthink every decision.
Yeah.
No, not overthink. That's unfair. You're forced to make brilliant decisions because it can't be masked by budget. We've got bars that, we spent £1.2 million building, and I've got much less emotional relationship to that space than I have to the cheap ones. So, yeah, managing inside your budget. Third piece of advice, I would get some good people around me. I would get good business partners. I think if you're coming up into bars, it's important to have some experience around you. That might be as simple as like a mentor. It might be as simple as a leadership coach. It might be as simple as a brilliant general manager that's been a friend of yours for years who wants to come and help you on that first stage, that first year of the business. It might be an active business partner. But surrounding yourself with people and being feeling the freedom to ask for help within that community that you should building for yourself. I think it's essential. Almost everybody loves to give help and advice, but almost nobody likes to ask for it. It's a real mismatch because it's sat there waiting for you. And I get the opportunity to call some unbelievably senior legends to ask for advice on different bits and pieces, and they always pick up the phone for me. But I've got the confidence to ask because I now know that rule. It's one that, I think people should be more confident about reaching out for advice, and again, also investing in their network.
Incredible. You're awesome. Thank you for being here today. How can listeners connect with you, learn more about what you do, check out the bars? There's so many of them.
I'm not going to read out all of them, but at JJ Goodman bartender is my handle. So you can find me nice and easily.
Find all the links there.
All there. Yeah.
Love that. And you've been on TV lately as well. Is that a lately thing or?
Yeah, I've been doing bits and pieces for years actually. It's been really fun. I like it. You've done TV as well, right?
A little bit, yeah.
It's
long time
fun.
ago. It is, yeah.
Yeah, it starts with a bit of Saturday Kitchen, and you turn up and with your little kit, and you crack out a drink in 2.5 minutes, and then it's kind of over the years it's evolved. Getting to work with like Vic Hope was amazing. Alan Carr. Most recently Katie Piper. I just did 6 episodes for her new series. We're now talking to Phoenix. We've got a call tomorrow morning about maybe some exciting stuff as well. So it's a space I'd like to do more in. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it's a nice break. Not that I necessarily need another spinning plate, but I think that's probably just the way my brain works.
I think you're clearly great at spinning more plates. So let's see before we have one of those Greek weddings and they're like being smashed on the floor.
yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.